Where did I put it? Here it is. Welcome to the Toolbox. Tools for life and everything in between. Stuff you can use or toss, it's up to you. Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in. I think this is episode 7 now, so I'm just going to kick right off because I got a couple here who are just awesome, and I can't wait for them to introduce themselves. So we're going to kick it off. Who are you, and what is your military background?
Hi everybody, my name's Brittany. I served just over 6.5 years with PPCLI as an infantryman. I did some time in Charlie Company, and then once our family started to grow, I moved up to ops through combat support. And Arthur, if you want to.
Hello. I belong to 2VP, Charlie Company, into on-the-job training with Recce, into a door gunner position, which was awesome for 8 Squadron. Back to Battalion Bravo Company, deployment to Kabul, which was fantastic and amazing to be a part of. Into Kingston GMT cell, teaching to released medically, just moral PTSD from Afghanistan, and that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. I worked with 2VP for my tour in 2008, and they were fucking awesome. Just straight up awesome. Can't say enough about those guys. So the real question, what do you guys do now?
We've had some serious adventures since we got out. So I guess the first kind of big thing that happened is Arthur had this idea and vision of starting his own clothing line, and then that kind of fed into opening a fitness facility that was geared towards ill and injured veterans, first responders who were dealing with mental health complications from service. So we rode that pony until November last year. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar. Owning and operating your own business is extremely difficult, especially when you have 2 small children and a family to look after. So we made the tough but necessary decision last year to shut down shop. And I've been in school now gone back to school to do my bachelor's in business administration with a specialty in marketing. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm going into my 3rd year this September. And Arthur's working with a business called Soul Academy Wellness.
I train, I motivate. I just like to help people. I've spent my entire life with physical fitness, and physical fitness has been the cornerstone of my mental health. And then Edgewood. So Edgewood was fantastic, helped me process a lot, helped me discover self, sit with pain, and just know I am not my thoughts. So it was great. So physical fitness and Edgewood really helped me. So I just motivate people. I just do my best to help in whatever capacity I can in the community.
That's what we really need, I think, especially for veterans. I've had this conversation many times for guys and gals that have gotten out and they don't really know what to do. And I'm like, you got to start at the very minimum with yourself. And at the very basics of that is the physical side of it. And if you are feeling physically okay, then you can lead into everything else. I had a episode 3 I did with Major Mark Campbell, and we just talked about pain specifically. And it was really enlightening, just how much pain can overtake your entire psyche if you let it.
Yeah,
it's a tough thing to deal with when you have chronic pain. So that was the Iron King, right? That's what the gym you guys had.
Right.
Yeah. I saw some pictures of that, and I really wish I was in Kingston because I would have been there every day.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty incredible spot, and we definitely made a big impact on the community here. And the people who really got it. And people who didn't, then it just wasn't a space for them to thrive in. But we're pretty proud of the sacrifice that we made opening that space. pretty proud of the people who really took advantage of really challenging themselves mentally and physically to make themselves a better version of themselves despite their pain or their trauma. So it was pretty incredible watching that growth happen in people. And I think for us, it was just an incredible experience. And the fact that we, it's funny to joke about, but like our marriage survived opening a business. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So now what do you guys say is your major takeaway? You guys, obviously you're saying you had the business, you're dealing with each other, you're dealing with your own traumas, you're dealing with your kids, you're dealing with all this other stuff. What would be your major takeaway from the business side of it to pass on to anybody else?
Can I take this one?
Go for it.
Okay, so I built this business when I was also not even healed, and I had a lot of fear and scaredness in my body when I left the military, because we were trained to be hypervigilant. So I didn't want to bring any of that world to anyone. So I was not a boss. I created a gym as an experiment to see if a utopia could come from leading by example without ordering and trying to influence just through like seeing the work.
Yeah.
That is not the way to run a successful business, because people will not pick up on that, and it will crush your soul and suck the life from you. So the takeaway from that I learned is I know my strengths and my weaknesses are not admin, and I was not a prepared boss. And I'm not even educated. I don't even have high school. I'm very good physically, but mentally I have a hard time. And takeaway was either go to school. If you can't go to school, hire people to do the managing from you and save your money and get investors right away.
Yeah.
I also went into this business hoping that people would join in with me and I would create a team. And that didn't happen at all, because as well, I didn't have the courage to set my boundaries, because I didn't want to bring the army into this new world. So just learned from that, set boundaries, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. If you're not educated, don't start a business serious, hire somebody, because there's so much admin that you need to learn and be taught to ensure that you don't get audited, you don't get destroyed that way. You know how to read lease agreements, that way. You have the courage to hire and fire, to kick people out of your space. That's another thing I had a hard time with disciplined people. I also owned a gym, and in this utopia that I wanted to create, I allowed people just to train other people because I wanted them to experience a safe place. But that sucked money from us because we were unable to then have people hire our trainers that are in the building to create one unified culture. So there's many split cultures within my gym. And so, get educated. If you have a great idea, find people to invest in. Just don't jump into it, because if you're not ready for it, people aren't going to invest in you that way. So that's what I learned.
That's fantastic. That takes a lot of humility to be able to admit and to recognize and then admit your own weaknesses, and then actually hire someone or recognize that you can't do it all. I mean, that's such an army thing to do, right? It's like, oh yeah, I can take it. Yeah, it's no worries. I can do it all. Yeah, no problem. I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. And then you realize, shit, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
You're like 18 months into it, and you're exhausted, and you work, 16 to 20 hours a day, and you're like, what have we done?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree with that education, like, it kind of goes along with literally anything you want to do in your life, right? Like if you get out of the military and then you're just, I think one of our biggest mistakes was we didn't take time. We were so consumed by just the only thing we knew was to work.
Yeah.
So once we got out and like it was quiet, you know what I mean? Like we were like, okay, well, what's the next step? What do we need to do? And then we just kind of like jumped into this new venture without really arming ourselves with information before diving right.
It's such a military thing to do. Is that I'm not doing anything. There's got to be some work to do, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be something. Where the heck is it? Somebody tell me what to do. I need to do something. I had the same issue when I first got out, and I was constantly like training to school to working with horses to working with, and I was neglecting my own self so that I could stay busy, so I didn't have to deal with myself.
Well, because if you're busy, then your mind isn't yelling at you all the time, right? So you're crowding your brain and distracting yourself with something that's taking up 98% of your time, effort, and energy, so that you don't have the time, effort, or energy to put into thinking about, how did I get to this point, and not being truthful with yourself of what your body and your brain actually needs, which is just some self-compassion and a break. Like, it just needs to be like, yo, dude, you need to slow down for 5 minutes and let's reassess where we're at, please and thank you.
I liken it to those stupid ass long ruck marches where you're set for like a certain distance. They say, okay, everybody, we're gonna walk 10K today, and off you go. And as you come up to the 10K, they're like, you know what? We're going to walk an extra 5. And you're like, whoa, wait, what? Like, your brain, it needs time to actually conceptualize that you were walking 15. You can keep going, obviously, and, all of us did. But I always found I was more tired after an addendum ruck than if I were just to walk 15. And I think it's the mental aspect of being prepared for it or not.
And your spirit is like 1,000% broken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As you watch the building, as you walk past the building, you're just like, there it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys retired a while ago now, eh? It's been
2015 for me and 2017 for Arthur.
Okay, so a few years at least. How was your transition? Like, when you actually got out, how was it?
It was good. I was really blessed. I had a great chain of command that assisted me with everything. JPSU was great. That aspect was really nice. I had trouble with SISIP and VAC because, again, my admin skills. I was blessed and grateful for the clerks because they helped us with all the paperwork. Even as a JAC, there was lots of people to help me with my memos. If I was doing PER write-ups for the section, I had people there to help with my grammar and spelling, and sirs to red pen it, and then I just redo it. So that was really a blessing. So I had a hard time then not having that and just in the admin world alone, and a life blessed with like just streamline, everything's taken care of. Here's your paycheck, the mess fees come off of it, your PMQ fees come off of it. Yay, no bills. Like, I just existed. And then civilian world is like, oh, there it all is.
Yep.
So I had a hard time with that. I had a hard time getting rid of my ego and seeing that civilians didn't give or understand, not that didn't give, they don't get, they don't understand, and they don't know. In our case, in my case, the infantry lifestyle, which is very unique, and I loved it very much when I was in it. It was a warm safety blanket. I fit the mold very well, but when you're outside of it, our mannerisms, our way of speaking, our way of acting is completely foreign to people, and so I had a hard time connecting with people. I'm kind of getting better at that. I'm putting myself out there more to actually like get out. My transition was just strange, and I'm still in a strange limbo too, because I am physically in my prime as well, still training hard, strong. Mentally, I am different and more vulnerable because I'm comfortable with that vulnerability. I'm comfortable with my fears and my joys, my sadnesses, my excitement. I'm able to process that stuff better. So I'm still like now mentally, I'm learning what people may have learned, at young 20s. I'm still mentally learning how to operate the world.
Absolutely. It's I was going to say one of the major difficulties for pretty much every, I would say the infantry for sure, but combat arms as well. We have a way of being, and it almost, if you were to sit like a dude in a room with a bunch of civilians, it would be so hard just to sit there and listen to them talk.
At the beginning, absolutely.
After time, and once you acclimate to it, I've said this a couple times too, in that we live in such a microcosm of the Canadian culture.
Yes.
Our time in it is the world. It like the whole world is this microcosm. So we don't interact very much outside that microcosm, and then you get out and you're surrounded by 34 million odd Canadians, and we're in a small little bubble of say 600,000 vets and serving, and we expect everyone else to just figure it out. Like, why can't you all just be like me, when we are a very small microcosm and we need to adapt to our situation rather than people adapting to us?
I think that's where when we're transitioning, I feel like it's important, because I feel like part of the narrative in the transition period is that we expect people, or like we just go back out into the world and just expect things to carry on the way they were, when in actuality it's on us to kind of empathize with the fact that people don't understand us. Because like there are studies right now that are happening that are trying to classify military culture as its own subculture. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like we speak a different language, we conduct ourselves a certain way, but then when you take your uniform off and you hang it up that last time, you can't. It's not that you can't go back to that. It's just you're not in Kansas anymore. So It's like you have to adapt and overcome this new ground in your life, or you're gonna sink. That's just the way it is. You have to adapt, or it's you're gonna run into a lot of trouble.
That's totally accurate.
Okay, so like when I joined, I was 17 when I joined, so I was just a baby. And infantry basically raised me through some of my most like vulnerable years of teenagehood / early 20s, right?
Yeah.
So when I got out, it was like I didn't even have that time in my life where like kids my age were like going out to the bar and like doing that kind of experience stuff like a civvy way, when like I just learned how to do it the army way.
Yeah.
But when I got back into civilian life, like I had no way to just reach out to the girls that I went to high school with, or like the people that I was friends with before, because I was a completely different human being, and where everybody was still at. It was really hard. So I ended up just making new friends, because it was really hard to go back to those old relationships.
Absolutely. And we're looking at it through a completely different lens as well. Like I could count on one hand the amount of friends I have, civilian friends, from before I was in the military to now. And really, I have like one or two that I talk to regularly, but that's about it. But that, that's a difficult part of when, again, we live in that microcosm, right? And one of the other things, Arthur, you'd mentioned was the lack of admin and the almost the expectation of things being taken care of. And I hear this all the time from vets, from guys getting out, that they didn't really understand how to, like, who do they talk to get a doctor, and who do they talk to about getting gas hooked up, and like they never had to deal with these things because they left home where their parents paid for everything, and they joined the army where the army paid for everything. And then you're all of a sudden late 20s and you have no idea how anything works. And I actually, when my son was getting ready to go to school, my oldest, it was a couple of years ago now, my wife's like, we have to register him for school. And I was like, what do you mean? What's this registering thing? I thought we just like would drop them off on the first day.
And that's it. Later.
I had no clue that was even required. So it's a hilarious thing, but it's a very real thing that we have to be aware of. And we need to teach the young privates, the young sappers, the young troopers how to do that admin stuff. Because when I got lucky enough that when I went to when I came back from overseas, I got put in as a troop clerk. So I just had to figure out how to do all the admin. And then I went to the intelligence cell and I had to write reports and I had to deal with the upper echelon. So I got really lucky in the fact that I learned the admin side of it very early. Whereas I know guys who, they're sergeants, and the only real admin they've ever had to do is write PRs and PDRs.
Well, I think we're kind of babied in a sense too, right? Where we have.
That's good, because I'm going to speak on that from my perspective. I'm glad I I was 100% babied in that aspect because I didn't and still don't have the mental maturity to do that well. I get like straight up headaches when reading. I'm dyslexic. Like that stuff sends like I get physical pain from that admin. I'll do it, but I was glad when I was a younger man that was there so I can focus on just being super fit, knowing battle procedures, knowing what's in my tent group and what's in my lab. You know, I can focus on that one aspect. And I was always blessed and thankful that my chain of command always saw it in me. That's like, he's not the admin one. Yeah. He can sweep. He's a good sweeper and do the tables and clean the weapons and pick up the crew tent and carry it on his back on top of his ruck because that's what I'm good. That's what I'm good at.
Well, that's one of the things about the military too, is that we build our sections ideally on that fact, right? The big dude is probably going to be the 6 gunner. Okay, great. The really small dude who's really quick, he's probably going to go on recce. It's not an absolute given sentiment, but we can build our teams using what the skills everybody has, right? A good sergeant's going to be like, okay, well, Arthur may not be good at admin, but damn, he's good with a 9, or he's great with the M203. Give him a fucking grenade. He'll be happy.
That's how you can always tell the difference between good leadership and shit leadership, because the guys who had their platoons wound tight and used that logical thought process to build their sections and their platoons, those were the ones that you wanted to work for, and then got everybody else.
Yeah, it was always funny in the engineer squadrons when we were working up for tours, and people would you'd see all these memos come in like, I want to switch sections to this section, or I want to switch troops to the other one. And it was always because that one section had a great sergeant, or that the other platoon warrant was fantastic, things like that. Yeah. So moving on here, you guys, I asked this for everybody I talked to on this podcast. One piece of advice for transition. If you could tell yourself something to go over your transition to make it easier, what would you say?
First.
Yeah,
I have it immediately popped in my head. My biggest piece of advice is don't. How do I word this properly? It was just in my head. You are a veteran now, and you have an incredible amount of skill sets and experiences that are valuable. And I really breaks my heart when I see somebody who I had a lot of respect for, that had a lot of really cool, unique skills, that had so many cool experiences, get out and feel like they're worth nothing out here. So my piece of advice is take a really good hard look in the mirror and remember that you have skills and experiences that people are craving, that businesses and companies and employers and organizations are dying for in civilian world. So
absolutely,
please just remember that.
That is such a good point.
And my piece of advice for myself is conquer the world. Stop. I just yelled at myself.
I think we put too much pressure on ourselves when we get out to attack the next bound so quickly.
Yeah. And
that was one of our biggest things, that in reflection of the couple of years that we've spent out, we put so much pressure on ourselves to get to the next level, when in reality
there is no next level.
You're running a marathon, homie. You do this till you die now.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Chill. So just enjoy your life, and really at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. And your level of happiness and where you're at in your life and your ability to sit with yourself and be proud of who you are, what you've done and how far you've gotten is a huge deal. So stop putting so much pressure on yourself, enjoy things, and remember how valuable you really are.
Those are fantastic points. And really, I mean, grace, just being gracious to yourself is such a key thing, right? It comes from our training, because everything in our training is if you don't get this done, people die. If you don't make this timing, people die, right? And you get out and people aren't dying, right? Like if you don't hand that paper in on time, you lose 10%, right? Like
it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you got to be gracious to yourself. That's a huge point. I thank you guys for bringing that up because it's so perfect. Any big plans? You got anything in the future? You got ideas? You got goals? Anything that people should be aware of?
I mean, like, yeah.
I have one.
You go ahead. I just spoke a lot. You go ahead.
Mine's super easy. My goal, I went on to Twitch, so from my basement, I can connect with people, and I just want to show them like of accepting help. And I learned a lot from that. I'm going to shout out Edgewood again. Edgewood was a fantastic place. I did 9 weeks there of trauma therapy. And I was with alcoholics and addicts. I was in their classes as well. And my brain was very much similar. And I was very blessed that I didn't go to alcohol or drugs. So I'm on Twitch. My game plan is to like create just like a kind of a show where I just share my vulnerable self and hopefully it inspires others. So that's my game plan. And then to chill at home and make sure I groom my dogs and care for my children and clean the floors properly. Like that's honestly like that's it for me. Statement.
I don't think that's crazy at all. That's fantastic. You want to teach others through your example. That is the pinnacle of leadership. I think that's fantastic. Brittany?
And I guess for me, I started going back to school. Was it 2017? So I'm going into year 3 of my bachelor's degree, which is pretty awesome. I was a little skeptical at first because my entire motivation for going back to school for business marketing was because we had the gym and, you know, that piece that we talked about a little bit earlier about arming yourself with information and making sure that you've got your shit wound tight before you dive headfirst into something.
Yep.
So we kind of did things a little bit backwards, opened the business, and then we were like, oh shit, we don't know what we're doing. So we had to like educate ourselves through YouTube University and stuff. And then when we got to the point where things at one point were looking like they were going really, really well, and we wanted to, you know, expand our service offering, move into a bigger space, and do all this other really ambitious stuff. We were like, holy moly, like we need to.
We got on that real quick too. People do not have faith in a concept. So like our gym idea and the execution, if we expanded it, we'd still be open because we'd have more space to give people space.
Yeah.
But like we had 3 landlords in Kingston totally ghost us.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had everything, business plan, our phases, like a good SMESC. And we gave it to these landlords. They were all gung-ho until like signing the lease, the new lease to say like, this is great, we'll begin this. They just ghosted us. And that felt so bad. That hurt me so bad because the first time it didn't bother me. The second time it didn't really bother me. The third time it was like do or die for our business because I started small square footage.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other gyms in Kingston were honestly so like, they were like frightened by us. So they stepped up their game. So I had to step up my game like all the time. And I was in a small space anyway. So they totally ghosted us. And that's the education piece. They didn't like, who am I? I'm Infantry like X who wants to help veterans. And most of these landlords, like they say like, oh, we support the troops, but they don't know troops.
Yeah.
They don't know that we physically and mentally hurt. And they don't know what hypervigilance is and the concept of like going into a mall, frustrating somebody. Like that sounds ridiculous, possibly, not generally, not universally, to others when not suffering with those symptoms. So they didn't get it and they ghosted us. So I'm going to put that out there. So be careful out there, veterans. Know your admin again. Do that education piece first because you will get ghosted.
Yeah, so that was like why we decided like I was gonna go back to school, and like I was on the VAC rehab program anyway.
Yep.
And looking to go back to school, so that just made sense. And then I got super duper lucky because it turns out that I actually really enjoy the content and the stuff that I've been learning, and I'm good at it, which is also super cool. So the next steps for me are just like find that big sexy job and make some money.
Yeah. I just finished my business diploma last year, and it was all fun and games right up until I had to do accounting, and then I was like smashing my head against the wall. I just like
it's not even the one that gets you. Oh, jeez, man, I do this.
it is one of those things that you just, especially for combat arms people, I don't know why we just like it. I wanted to strangle somebody while I was in there. Just like I couldn't handle.
That's impossible password puzzle you just can't finish because you're just like, I just don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Anymore.
Oh man, it's painful. Okay. So the reason I have you guys on here today is I want to talk to you two specifically about living with trauma, because it is very challenging. And as much as I would love to sit down and talk with my wife about it, I don't know if she'll be completely honest, because her and I would be talking to each other. not that she would lie to me, but I think she would try to spare my feelings every once in a while. But so I'm glad that I have you guys on here and really discuss this. So I think we talked about this, living with trauma and being gracious with yourself. But how do you guys get to a point where you're gracious with each other?
That one is really unique because we also had a unique dynamic that I was a master corporal and Brittany was a corporal, and we were both infanteers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when we left the army, like I saw Brittany as an infanteer. So my mannerisms and the way I spoke to Brittany was to my comrade in arms.
Right.
And Brittany was rediscovering herself. I still had a mask. I had a mask of illusion of being an infanteer.
Yeah.
Still, sorry, my son distracted me. I lost my. He wanted popcorn. Like, no, you can't have popcorn in the middle of this interview.
It's okay. I call it the face when you have to put it on just to look normal.
Yeah. So I kept that face. So I was harsh. I wasn't compassionate to what was needed for my female life partner. So I didn't know how to be compassionate in the graceful arts, in the caring and compassionate and the empathetic way. So I had to learn that. So that was one of my first obstacles, was my love language. How can I change that Brittany knows that I see her not as an infanteer but now as a woman?
That's really important.
That was my first obstacle.
I think for me it was effort based. So I always saw and was very aware, even in like the early days of when we were first trying to put a label on what was going on in our lives at home. Arthur never ever didn't try. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think we both recognize that in each other, is that we are constantly both trying to be better people. And I know for me, like I might not say it to him all the time, but like I see how hard he works, and I see how hard it can be on him sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's just effort, right? It's kind of like when we were in battalion, is the people who really tried and made an effort were respected. So it kind of works off of that, and like we're both proud of each other for all the obstacles we both overcome. Or like we'll be married 10 years in December.
That's awesome.
And
congrats. Pre-congrats for December. It's a very hard thing, right? I mean, I do the same thing. Arthur, was when I came back from the army, I was actually on IR in Meaford. So I had lived apart from my wife for probably just under 2 years. And I mean, I visited, but we weren't like living together. I was in Meaford, she was here in Edmonton, and I had to relearn how to be a husband. I had to relearn how to be, a good father. I had to like my son was 5 months old when I got out, so I had to learn how to do everything all at once. And it is a very, very difficult process to relearn how to be a partner, especially when you're kind of on your own, or you're looking at someone as a comrade rather than a partner. Now, one of the things that I do is I have what I call non-negotiables, and they are my these are the things that I have to have for me to be stable, I guess, if I'm not very stable to begin with. But anyway, the like jiu-jitsu is one of them. I have to go to jiu-jitsu. I have to do my jiu-jitsu. I have to be able to get some sort of a workout in, even if it's just like a stretch or something like that. Or I need to have some time to really focus, whether that is doing the podcast or working on the Walk for Veterans or doing, I don't know, something outside the house. I need to like focus on something outside the house. And those are the three things those are my non-negotiables. I can't, if I don't have those things during the day, then I'm just an asshole. Do you guys have something similar, or do you guys have like a preset timings or plans where you can just say, hey, I need some time, or have like a safe word or something, say radishes and then fuck off, right? I don't know.
No, I think like one of the biggest things, like especially since Arthur got back from Edgewood, is that we've both just come to the conclusion that we're also different people, right? So like we've been through more, like we've gone in our decade of being together, we have experienced things that most people don't experience in a 75-year marriage. Like we have, oh my God, it's been like a 10-round bout of just like fighting to, be our best selves and be our best married couple and be the best parents that we can be and stuff like that, right? And like every marriage has that, but like for us, our situation's a little bit unique in the nature just of our marriage, right? But I know like for us, our biggest thing in the past year is just both of us understanding that we're different people, and that goes with any marriage. But I'm very social. I like to go out. I like to talk to people. I like to, I enjoy a beverage every once in a while. I'm a waitress downtown at one of the restaurants downtown. So I enjoy that very like fast-paced, chaotic setting where Arthur's a totally different human being. So
oh yes, I like solidarity.
Me too.
That's why I like my stream too. I'm more comfortable stream showing my physical, like teaching my lessons than in the gym, because I find it hard to be around people. So that was a big thing for us, because Brittany always wants to go out. So then me, especially in the early stages, being taken away from my like only safe spot, my home, would cause me to, just not be kind. I wouldn't be like nice.
You just weren't happy.
Just not happy.
You're just not happy.
I'm not happy. Mm-mm.
So like our non-negotiables are like, I would say, and you can like correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would say communication is like our biggest one. That if we've both made each other a promise that if we have beef, we say our beef, and we just put it out there. And sometimes that's like, oh shit, I didn't realize that's how you felt. And other times it's like, okay, let's do this. And like, like any other married couple, we have our row, and then, we resolve things. But we never let it go. You know what I mean? Like we just, if we have a problem with what's going on or with the way things are being done or whatever, we immediately address it. Like,
ooh, but here's the one thing that learns my non-negotiable though is the gym. But also, Brittany likes to try to fix the problem right away. But because of my trauma, I go to my reptilian brain very quickly. So then Brittany outsmarts me, which causes me anger, which then causes me to have a temper tantrum like a child. So I've been trying to teach Brittany, it's like, if I say 20 minutes, you've got to give me 20 minutes. Not because I'm pissed off, but because I need my brain to literally catch up so that I can share my perspective clearly on an argument issue, and then be able to hear Brittany's perspective clearly without judgment, to then find the root of the problem. So that's something we're still learning.
Like with the communication piece, that we both just give each other the benefit of the doubt. So like if I get the like red flag, I need 20 minutes, then I've learned to respect that and just be like, we're not getting anywhere with this unless we do that. And that comes with time and understanding. I'm not perfect, so I can't be on all the time.
And vice versa,
right?
Absolutely.
So it's, So sometimes it's like, hey, let's just cut the head off the chicken and get it done. And then other times it's like, I need 20, but we both have the mutual respect for each other to be like, hey, I have to back off and we'll fix this in a minute.
You know? I think it's quite hilarious because my wife and I are basically the reverse of you guys. My wife does not like to be in front of anybody. She doesn't like to talk to anybody. She doesn't want to be in the spotlight. Now, I don't really actually like being around people. I prefer to be by myself, but at the same time, I guess I'm good at it, so I have no problem speaking in front of crowds. I enjoy getting into conversations. That's why I started the podcast. But the funny thing is that she is very much I need 10, 20 minutes. I need time to like think about this and wrap my head around it and piece it out. And I'm just like, I want to smash. I'm a sapper, right? I'm just like, let's blow the fucking wall down. Let's do it right fucking now. But so yeah, I hear you guys. It's very difficult, especially for myself. I have a hard time because Brittany, I'm like you. I want to sort it out right now, and
I have too much shit going on in my head, and I'm like, hey, if there's a problem, we need to fix it like right now, and then we can move on, and my brain can go back to chaos.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I have to focus on this one thing.
And I like to keep my brain empty, so when there's things in it, it hurts.
It's a good way to do it. I like that. But okay.
Yeah, but
you know the one thing I love about Infanteers, especially, is you guys are the best at making fun of yourselves. Like a lot of the other units, we have to make fun of other people, like the strats. We make fun of them all the time. But hanging out with the infantry guys, you guys will just bash on each other, and we can just sit there like,
yeah, just enjoy the
exactly. It's fantastic. I love it. So, you know, one of the key points I always tell people, especially in relationships, is prioritizing yourself. And it's a very confusing thing to do for some people because people want to, they want to prioritize each other. They want to say, I'll do whatever works for you guys, however you want to do it. But I find if you don't take that time for yourself, like when my wife, she'll go running or, she's got work to do because she works from home right now. She'll go down to the office and take the time for herself to just focus on those things. Do you guys do something similar? Do you guys specify taking the time?
Sure. Yeah, and with Brittany, it's that social aspect. So she'll tell me like, "Hey, like I've been cooped up.
I'm going bananas.
It's like, yeah, go out. Like I don't text Brittany. Like she can go out, like hang out with her friends. I have no jealousy. There's no issues there. So Brittany knows that she has the social aspect. She's safe to do it. There's no judgment on my end. And conversely, when I say Brittany, like, yeah, go. I need that time to myself so I can sit and pet the dogs and just be in the quiet, play my video games. And you know what? Go to bed. I love to go to bed early. Yeah. Sleep hygiene is really important for my mental health. Living with trauma, back to that kind of root question. Yeah. Sleep is hugely important for me. I eat very easily, not physically, but mentally. My brain drains. So at midday, I'm toast. I had a nap before this. So I'm like a child. I go for naps during the day. And yeah, so my physical hygiene is my end all be all. Like that's what I need to make sure that I have the mental energy.
I call it psychological capital. And you gotta
nice one.
You only have so much of it, right, during the day, and you need your sleep to get it to refill that capital, or you need to invest in yourself to refill that capital. And it's something, what I love about the term capital is that you can build on it, right? The fitter you are, the better you're going to be, your better mindset you're going to have. That doesn't mean you need to be ultra fit and running, crazy 100-kilometer ultra marathons or, power lifter, but fitness in general, right?
In that physical range.
Exactly. And then I think it's just so important. I love the fact that you brought that up. But yeah, it's taking a nap if you need it it's important. Take it. It'll help you out later, even if it's 20 minutes or it's an hour. Do whatever is required to make you a better person, right? I don't know how I use jiu-jitsu for that. I don't know why, but getting beat up by other people seems to make me feel better.
It's really special because it's water, so you're not getting beaten up. You're flowing together. The mind-body connection is there, and the joy of that mental chess is there. So definitely support that as a healthy alternative without rage.
Yes.
If we practice rage, then it's rehearsing it. We have to go into that really chill and without ego.
Absolutely. You have to be so mindful to do anything with it. And I find the moment I start, even when I'm like mid-roll, the moment I start thinking about, oh, you know what, I'm going to pull this off, I'm done. I can't, I just get choked out so fast, or I'll get thrown into armbar. And whereas when I'm just moving, things seem to work out quite well. I found it very much like section attacks. If you're thinking about where you need to go, usually you're going to get tripped up somewhere, or it's not going to turn out the way it is.
Yeah, because the section attack is good example. Is like super primal. You're just in it. Like up, he sees me down. Listening, like your ears are just on. Like everything's cracking around you. But as soon as that section commander 2IC speaks, it's like you can hear them over anything. And it's like, oh, we're just in it. So yeah, I like that analogy.
Just and we've all kind of like experienced that moment where we just let our bodies do what it's been
needs
trained
to do. Yeah.
Right? Like we've just all had that moment where our minds are empty and our bodies
just move,
you know? So
yeah. I liken a lot of my stuff to military time, and I've had to check myself a couple of times, and I'm like, oh God, I'm turning into that guy that can never, like I've been out since 13 now, and I talk about the Army all the time. So I'm that guy who never lets it go. Got to talk about everything. But there's so many great points that you can relay from your time in if you think about it. So I'll just.
Oh yeah, and like textually too. Like you don't really need to things that I just never did, and I would say that that's probably a lot to do with the kind of military experience that I have. But like I don't tell people all the time that, you know, like I'm a vet or I was in the military. I barely ever talk about the fact that I was infantry.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably mostly because I'm a chick, to be honest with you.
Because Brittany says that I can vouch and make her validate her feelings on that. I've seen people's looks, and Brittany's like, I was infantry. They never believe her. Yeah. And like me and Brittany will be standing next to each other and like tell the stories of even the Spartan X, like, and what we had to go through to complete just an exercise.
Yeah.
And then I say, yeah, Brittany completed that alongside me, like no problems. And I saw her hamburger feet to prove it, but she never complained. But people don't believe Brittany because she is like a tiny woman. So people just, I see the looks that they give her, and it infuriates me because it's like, that is so ignorant.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, so like I just don't talk about it all the time, but like I always make sure that when there's opportunity to talk about just experiences in a non-contextualized way, then I make sure that skill set or that experience or that lesson that was learned is definitely communicated, because they're so unique in their nature that I feel like people learn so much from the stories that we have to share, but we're just not going to, like, I always find if, like, going back to school, for instance, there's lots of vets that go back to school. So I've had interactions with other vets that go to the same college that I do. And when they tell a story or an experience that they've had in the military, they're still using all the jargon and the language and the referencing. And people are just like blinking at them, being like, I have no clue what you just said. What I mean? And then I like translate it for them. They're like, oh, okay. And then I'm just like, man, I wish people could put that filter on their mouth more often so that people could better. I feel like we just get lost in translation sometimes.
Yep. You're absolutely right. And one of the other keys to that is I think what Arthur, you were saying is that it's an ego trip, right? For a lot of people, especially civilians or even other military people that would look at Brittany, who, you know, is not that tall. But I could see like bigger dudes looking at her going, well, if she's capable of doing that, and then it hits their own ego, and that's why they would be ignorant about it. You know what I mean?
And other women. Also, I've seen women's looks that they've given Brittany.
Oh yeah.
And they're like disgusted. They're like, why would you do that?
Well, not all of them, but there's been instances where it's happened, and it's whatever at that point.
And then here's another one. Here's a unique thing. I'm going to speak for Brittany on this one. Is within our associations, Brittany has a hard time fitting in because she doesn't fit in with the army wife.
Right.
She doesn't fit in with Infantry because of just the ego.
Yep. Yeah, that's a tough one. And that actually leads right into the next comment I was going to talk about. We all have responsibility for, how we think and but we can't control how other people think. And it's painful at times because it really, you wish you could just beat it into their head, right? Like there's lots of times where I wish I could just smack people until they understood what I was talking about. But you are really only responsible for your own thoughts, and you cannot be responsible for other people's thoughts. And you just have to be able to, as hard as it is, letting that stuff roll off your back. For me, I remind myself regularly if I'm dealing with an ignorant person, and I use that term not in a negative manner, but just someone who doesn't know. The thing that I have to tell myself is they just don't know. And I will either try to educate them, or if they're not willing to learn, then I just, okay, they just don't know. And I leave it at that. Do you guys have anything like that?
Edgewood, for sure. I relate with you.
Yeah.
Because I used to try to enforce, I thought my will was the will to be meant to. It's my way or the highway. I learned that those were my masks of perfectionism, expectations of others, of what I would do. But I don't have control over another person. So I shouldn't have expectations of the other person and shouldn't assume that they know my expectations.
Yeah.
So once I broke down all those kind of layers, it's made my life much easier and our relationship together much easier, because then I wouldn't put my expectations, because I had one residual fear is even cleanliness. Like I have my discipline that was instilled into me and the punishments that I experienced through other people's fuck ups really hit me. So I have expectations of other people to keep military inspection rooms, but that's not correct.
Yeah.
So I can expect out of others. So it took me a long time, especially being a gym owner. And then I kept that place. No other gym was as shiny without janitor.
This is a fact.
Yep.
I kept that place so clean. But then I would see people, I would have to bite my tongue all day because I'd be like, why are you so messy? What is your major malfunction? So I would walk behind some people and just clean up after them. And they wouldn't even know I was doing it. And I did that the whole time. So that caused me, I was so drained at the end of the day, putting expectations of myself on so many people throughout the day, and then that expectation never coming to light, and me being disappointed all day for no reason to be actually disappointed, drove myself crazy.
Yeah.
So I relate with it.
So how do you get, what was it that, obviously going through Edgewood, but what were the tools that something gave you that allowed you to break that down in your own mind and separate them from you, or their actions from your actions, or their thoughts versus your thoughts, etc.?
Passion to self, the four agreements, which is accountability of my word, to not assume, to do my best, and don't take things personally. Once I understood those four agreements, and I knew that all I could do is my best, anything other than myself. I know to not assume that others know my feelings unless I set my boundaries, I statements. So that was another tool to then have my words. So not to be a yes man and not to be a no man, and to say what is actually I am feeling, because I'm not responsible for how my feelings make you feel, and you're not responsible for how your feelings make me feel. So once I got that I didn't have to be a yes man, that people weren't judging me, that I wasn't the center of the universe, and that everybody in the universe was judging me. Once I got rid of all of that, which was trained into me from the military, because it has to be.
Yep.
Once I got rid of that, through 9 weeks of dedicated effort in Edgewood, and I came back and I was totally different. No joke, chill. I can deal with emotional stressors without resorting to my primal instincts of fear and straight up flight, or freeze, which is very like I got a very strong primal like brain.
Mhm.
So for me to be able to control that and on opposed to react changed my life.
Yeah, no doubt. That's my psychologist. She worked with me. Her and I worked. She does equine therapy, so we work with horses quite a bit. The key thing that I got from it, because she would challenge me. I would say, I would make statements that were finite. It's either this way or it's not going to work. And she would challenge me with things like, "Are you like 100%? Absolutely. There's no way no matter what permutation this particular event happened in, that it would turn out any other way than what you said it did." And I'd be like, well, I mean, maybe. I mean, in an infinite world, right? There's anything can happen, right? And she'd be like, okay, so it's not 100% your way, or it's not going to work. It's like 99%. And I'd be like, well, yeah, I guess 99%. And then she would. So the moment I made a finite statement like that, or, I said, be talking about, oh, I hate how people do this. And she's like, well, is that really your responsibility that they do these things that you don't like? And I'm like, well, I mean, no, I can't change them, obviously. She's like, okay, so you can't change them, but what can you change? And I'd be like, well, I guess, I don't know, how I look at it, how I view them, whether I'm there or not, whether I see it, but like there's lots of things you can do to
feel it, just feel it.
Yeah,
that frustration and let it pass.
Exactly. And working through horses was such a benefit for me because they live the same way we do overseas, because they're prey animals. And as much as we love to think of ourselves as offensive, when we were in Afghanistan, anywhere you went that wasn't outside of actually attacking the people, you were a prey animal because people were trying to kill you.
And everybody hated
you. Yeah, exactly. So you're constantly on guard, just like horses are. You're constantly looking for the next safe area, like horses are. You're only hanging out with other horses, right? You don't want to deal with any other animals because they don't know the situation like you do. So it becomes very insular. But working through horses, you start to realize that they do hang out with other animals, and they hang out with other animals well. If they're not around horses, then they make connections with dogs or sheep or llamas. I mean, lots of pastures have llamas with their horses, but the key thing is that they can work well outside their own species. And I think that was a major switch for me, was like, oh, I guess you can step outside of your own comfort zone and be okay. Like, life is fine. Now, as per your guys's, let's dive into your guys' relationship a little bit. I know we're gonna get all touchy-feely here in a second. Yeah. So I have these, when I'm dealing with my wife, there's a point where I'm gonna fucking snap, right? Like, it's something's being said, or the kids have pushed me to a point that my stress levels are so high, or actually just recently when they did the gun ban, I read about that online, and I was so fucking livid. Like, anything was gonna make me snap. And my wife has this thing where she'll look me in the eye, she'll grab either my arm or something like that. She'll be like, you need to go sit down, or go take 10 minutes, or like, it's not even a question. It's just, go do this. And that's what I do. So I just like, okay. And I recognize it now, because that is her, it's for her own psyche. It's for her own mental health, just to not have me fuming in front of her or in front of the kids, because I will snap at whatever happens. Do you guys have something like that? Do you guys like recognize it in each other when that's gonna, and then tell somebody to go fuck off, or how do you guys roll?
I'll tell them about just like me smoke.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so like sometimes when, like, in our situation, we can both feel it before we see it, kind of thing. So it's very like spidey sense kind of deal. But we both have an agreement that, like, if Arthur's, not in a great headspace, it's stop what you're doing and go smoke a toke.
And I hate smoking cannabis, like, as a medicine, because I hate to acknowledge that I do have trauma in my brain.
Yep.
So I smoke cannabis because it does help. But I hate to smoke cannabis because it is my medicine. Yep. So Brittany will be like, go smoke. And sometimes one day I went 3 days. I was like, no, like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And like, I was so short, and Brittany, like, for 3 days is go smoke. At the end of the third day, I smoked, chilled out, and I could feel feelings again, and I can feel my skin, because when I'm so in the black, I feel nothing.
Yep.
So I felt immediately, I was like, super sorry that I didn't smoke 3 days ago.
So we just we trust each other enough now, and it's taken
I still
time.
fight it, though.
Yeah, you still fight it, but I feel like we just have this mutual understanding that I'm not saying it for me, and I'm not saying it for him, and that's part of the not taking things personally thing. It's just, you're not doing okay, just help yourself. You know what I mean? Like, do yourself a favor, do what you need to do to level yourself out, and then we can, readdress things that are making you upset, or we can have an honest conversation about why you're feeling the way you're, instead of it just being so driven by hate and anger.
Yep.
And then for me, when I see Brittany like that, I actually have a hard time Brittany's pain, because Brittany is so busy and keeps herself moving so much that I can't say go to the gym. I can't say, because Brittany as well, like, I don't drive. After Edgewood, I realized, like, I'm comfortable with my fears, and you know what, driving, like, I am not scared of my driving skills. I am scared
Everyone else's,
and I get so elevated. So I was just like, you know what, I personally, because I'm such a hermit, I don't have to leave. Brittany cannot smoke because she has to drive in case somebody, until the kids go to bed, but she makes sure that, she can drive at any time. So she doesn't have the option to smoke during the day, or take oils. CBD is fine, but like for trauma, THC is good as well, because it goes to the front of the brain, which then helps with, for me, my physical pain symptoms. Anyways, she doesn't have that. And then because Brittany's so busy, she can't physically go exert herself. So I have a hard time actually being compassionate when I see Brittany is short-tempered, or battling just life demons, her pain. She had back surgery. So I have a hard time. So all I can do for Brittany is, Brittany responds, her love language is touch. So I can rub Brittany's neck. I can give Brittany a hug. But unfortunately, Brittany has less tools in the day to kind of have that time, I feel. So I have a hard time being compassionate or helping Brittany, because the tools aren't available until certain times.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, my one of the things I do for my wife every once in a while, I know she's kind of not feeling great, is I send her text messages. Because usually when she was working, I would be at home, and in a similar way, it's like I can't do anything for her when she's having a crummy day when she's at work. And the only thing that I would continue to work on was just show her a little bit of love, a little bit of compassion, even if it's through a text message or a little video message through, I got an app called Marco Polo, which is great. It does little, kind of like TikTok, but it's like messaging. So you get these little video snippets that you can send to people. And anyway, that helped her a lot, because I was just showing her that she was being thought of throughout the day.
I think that's really cool that you do that. I'm a person that thrives on affirmation. I have such terrible anxiety at times that I feel like there's nothing that I can do right, hell or high water. So when Arthur gives me moments of affirmation, you've had a stressful as fuck day and you did a great job. I'm like,
that's awesome.
You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff is a big deal, and it's for both of us. Like, even something as small as like loading the dishwasher, being like, yo, I saw you do that, thanks for being a boss ass bitch.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's really, I think the key thing is really just understanding how to communicate to each other, right? What communicates and what works versus what doesn't. Because when Amber and I were when I first came home, and I just got my diagnosis, and I have a 5-month-old son, and I just came back from being an instructor in Meaford, I was very much like, this is the way shit's going down, right? I was used to being in charge. I was used to being the guy telling everyone what was going to happen. And it takes a long time and a lot of humility to be able to say that, oh, well, I don't know. Right? What do you want me to do? What is it that how do you feel when I say this? How do you feel when I say this? What makes you feel good when I do it? That kind of thing. Because you're showing your own vulnerability, right? And a lot of people don't want to do that. But the communication is so important.
Your own vulnerability plus consideration for your other person, right? Like, feel like we get so wrapped up in ourselves so much nowadays, especially with like social media and like selfie generation and all that other crap. Is like, I feel like we forget sometimes that this is a partnership and not just like you're living in the same house and coexisting. So it's like best friend in the whole wide world. And I treat him, it's going to sound funny, but like I treat him the same way I would treat my best girlfriend. We're in that he is the only thing he deserves from me is anything but the best. So that means honest communication. That means telling it how it is and being vulnerable and sometimes saying things that are hard to hear, because I would expect him to be honest and tell me things that are hard to hear if they need to be said. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And I think the key part of that is making sure that it's not personal, right? Like you can, like it's a personal statement, obviously, but it's not meant as a hurtful statement. You know, I'm having an issue with you doing this, but it's just,
it's an I statement.
Yeah, exactly.
When this happens, I feel this way. When you do this to me, I feel that, because nobody's doing anything to you.
Yes, absolutely. That's it's such a dichotomy too, because anytime you're dealing with a relationship, a lot of it is I can only experience what I feel, but you're in a partnership, so you still have to be able to recognize what each other feel, and it's a very difficult balancing act, right? You have what I need versus what you need, and we have to be able to give each other what each other need at the same time as getting what we need for ourselves. It's so challenging. Yes. But I guess that's what makes relationships also awesome, is because they're a continual challenge. At least in my head, I love a challenge, and so if it's a puzzle, I can figure it out. Let's figure it out. But how do you guys deal with like when you fight and you guys are fighting, because every couple fights at some point? Do you guys have any go-tos afterwards? Right, I know some people use physicality. They don't have crazy ass makeup sex, or they'll sit down and talk about it directly, or they will let it calm for a couple of days and then talk about it, or they'll talk to their psychs about it. Like there's all kinds of ways to deal with the resolution of the conflict. Do you guys have anything specific that you guys do or recommend?
This is going to sound funny. I'm going to have to... Yeah, I'll be right there, Theodore. I have to go wipe my son's bottom. So I'll be very quick and come back down. For me, afterwards, I have to calm myself, bring my brain back to logic, bring my brain back to compassion, and then generally I'll laugh with each other, because like we're both two ex-infanteers, so when we bout, like it is epic. It's never physical.
No. Yeah, just to be
but
clear.
it is epic. We can throw the jackings at one another so quick.
Knife hand.
Like it is a jack for jack. And then I laugh.
Both
laugh, and then we just like kind of get it out in the air. We solve it kind of within the day, within 24 hours. My son keeps calling me, and then we do enjoy intimate time. Like as a man, I do enjoy that, and I really try to show my love with Brittany through my like physical performance.
Yep.
Well, that's
like a bird of paradise.
Yeah, I'm a bird of paradise.
Got his feathers up, dancing around. Ooh.
Is yelling to let Brittany share her I statements of how she deals with the fights.
Oh my God, Theodore. Jesus.
That's awesome.
I think the best part about us fighting is like in the heat of the moment, we're both like two alpha type people, and we just like fangs out, go for it. Not saying that I endorse that at all. It's just what works for us. And like I said, like we both said, like it never ever gets physical, but like if you could picture like just two very strong personalities just
clashing,
whipping at each other, you know what I mean? So and I mean, like it doesn't last long. We'll go bout for bout, and then it'll, we taper off, and then usually we're pretty good at having a sense of humor about it after, and just kind of poking fun at each other, especially like in the heat of the moment when the jackings get so colorful that like a real good doozy comes out, and then we just joke about after, and it's a source of an inside joke for us. So yeah, I mean, like, we're pretty lucky in the fact that when we row, but I think for both of us, well, especially for me, like, I can speak for myself. I've seen my family hold on to grudges and stuff, and it's so awful to watch people keep that sort of stress in their bodies. And like, we've just committed to each other to, like, again, with the grace piece, is just, we're a normal married couple that has to live with each other day in and day out. And we have 2 small children that are beautiful creatures, but like, being a parent is stressful. So we recognize that these moments are going to happen because they're inevitable, but then, you know, we just move on. And like Arthur says this all the time, it's like my new favorite saying on the whole planet. He's like, I walk through many doors. So like, that's a joke, like, about his like short-term memory, but like, once we walk through a door, it's like, we've walked through the door, it's over, it's done with, kind of thing, and then we just move.
I literally forget everything that I ever have done every time I walk through a door, and every time I go into a new room, it's like brand new.
So we just are like, we have walked through many doors today, what's done is done.
Yep. That's a great way to put it too. You put it to rest, right? You recognize what's happening, you've talked through it or yelled through it or whatever,
right?
And then it's done.
We've talked about it, it's done.
One of this is going to be hilarious, but like, you guys said, I think Arthur said, when we have a bout, and the first thing I thought was you guys like picking up the pugil sticks and just starting wailing on each other. I was like, that is a really good way to do it.
Oh man, no, I've been there, done that, man.
Yeah, no, it's like the perfect image in my head of you two going at it with sticks.
What were those things that used to be able to blow up in the 90s, and you put them on your hands? They're like punching gloves, but you blow them up.
Oh, yeah. I remember those. That'd be hilarious.
Do not endorse physical violence.
No. I, it's funny. I keep trying to get my wife to do jujitsu with me, and I'm like, because one of the statements I made was like, we can have a fight, and then we can just go roll around and choke each other out, and we'll feel better afterwards. She was like, that's not fair. You're more advanced than I am. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. So that's fantastic. One of the things my wife and I do is we actually do like an AAR. We'll have a fight, we'll separate for a while, and then we come back and we actually will just talk it out and be like, okay, well, what was it that really bothered you about X or whatever, right? And then we can really break it down and really develop, as Arthur has said, the I statements is how I feel, how she feels, and we can come to either a conclusion or a way forward, right? And then
understanding, even like, I get your perspective, get my perspective. When we encounter this again in the future, the other will take a lead.
Yeah.
Not both.
Yeah, that I love hearing your voice in the background because it's just hilarious. Because I got 2 boys of my own They're doing the same thing.
Oh man, in isolation right now too. So they're like little ferrets. They're just like
literally bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
And I just came back too. I got 2nd-degree burns all over my face and hands.
Oh yeah.
Children were really good at being compassionate.
They're pretty cool little people.
They're one of the things that you never really think about when you first think about kids is you always expect there's expectations, right? Like you say, I'm gonna have to change diapers, I'm gonna have to deal with peed in beds and all these things that you recognize that kids are gonna do, and then you have to do stuff like teaching someone how to wipe their own butt, and you never even think about that until all of a sudden it needs to happen, and you're like, how did I learn how to do it?
You're like trying to go back in your memory bank, and you're like, I can't. It was too long ago.
I actually asked my mom about it. I'm like, what did you do when you wanted? And she was just like, I did it until you were uncomfortable with it, and then you just took over. And I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense, I guess.
Solid.
Yeah. But now, so let's talk about forward movement. How do you develop forward movement in your own relationship? I mean, because a relationship is, if it gets stagnant, people become really good roommates, right? Or they're married for so long that they kind of forget that they need to move their own relationship forward, and then they just become housemates or really good friends rather than partners. How do you guys develop that?
We're kind of like in that phase right now because we don't have so many outside things distracting us from focusing on our relationship anymore. Like for a time there, it was so fast paced and so stressful that, you know, like as much as we love each other and each other that all the time and we show each other that, your relationship kind of becomes secondary to all the chaos that's in your life and prioritize other things above your relationship. And then, you know, then all of a sudden you're in Christmas and, you know, like there's always so many other things that are happening outside that you kind of just are like, we're good. It's fine. We're fine.
Yep.
And then you're tired and there's just so much. So I think now that the noise, you know, and like COVID-19 sucks, but COVID lockdown kind of gave people an opportunity to readdress those things in their lives by deliberately making us slow down.
Yeah.
Forcing us to be in the same space for an extended period of time. Enticed us to have conversations with people that we live with because that's the only social human interaction that we could have. So I'm super grateful. Like, it sounds terrible, but like I'm grateful for the slowdown because if we had kept moving at light speed the way we were, like things would have just gotten trickier and trickier and trickier, right? But now that we've had the opportunity to slow down and kind of reacquaint ourselves in a romantic way, we are making plans to focus more on our relationship than other things in our lives now. It's good for us.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. You know, I always, with COVID happening and everyone being isolated, I don't know how many times I put it on social media, but it was, you know, if you come out of this period of time without having learned something, developed something, gotten better at something, then you just wasted 3 months of your life, right? Like this is such an opportunity to really look inwards and better yourself, better your relationship, better your understanding of something. Like I've been taking French on my phone since we started this whole thing, and I hate French. I hate I don't like the language at all. I have a hard time understanding it, but it was one thing that I just figured, you know, I actually did it because I wanted to show my kids that it's possible to learn another language. And my oldest started French immersion, and then we were like, oh, well, I guess we should probably know something too. And then we moved to a different school without a French immersion program, which is a French program on the side. But I just kept doing it. I was like, oh, well, can't hurt to have another language, right? And then I wanted to show my kids that was possible. But that's not the only thing, right? Like I still do jiu-jitsu. I still try to work out as best as I can. I really don't know much about working out. So maybe I'll hook up with Arthur at some point. You can show me some things to get going. Because I got a lot of injuries, so I have a hard time. I'll move forward and I'll start feeling good, and then I'll get hurt. And then I have to take a couple weeks off just to stop hurting so much. And then I kind of back at square one. And then, so I think it's mostly my fault because I beat myself up pretty bad about it too.
I think the other thing too is to recognize that, like, no matter how long you've been together, like I said earlier, we're going to be together or married 10 years, but don't ever stop dating each other.
Yes.
Don't ever feel like you're above that part or that's not relevant to your relationship anymore. Because if you don't try, like, force yourself to have fun.
Yeah, I'm really bad for that. I totally admit I've never been. I'm not an emotional person, to say the least. Like I don't exude emotion very well, and I have a lot of issues, a lot of trouble showing my own emotions. So I unfortunately there was a long period of time where I really took my wife and I's relationship for granted completely, and just kind of expected it to go on. And one day she told me that she was just not happy anymore, and I was like, oh fuck. I think I screwed up somewhere behind her. If you're not happy, that's not good. And you know, over years of therapy and like my own therapy and trying to be a better person, I recognize just what you just said is that I stopped trying to woo her. I stopped trying to keep her around, and I just expected her to be there. And it's been something I've been working on for the last little while, is just making sure that she is known. And that's why I was saying before COVID hit, I was texting her during the day, or I would, even when with COVID on, and if I have to go out and do something, I will continually check in with her and make sure that she knows where I am, what timings are, and when I'm going to be home, and blah, 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 blah.
I think it's cool too that, like, when Arthur and I do take the opportunity to like meet each other, we do fun, dumb shit that we would have done when we were younger too.
Ooh, smart.
Like we'll get tattoos, or we'll like he'll have his longboard and I'll watch him go longboarding, or like we do the fun stuff. Like it doesn't have to be like you put your little black dress on and he puts a tie on and you go for dinner and blah, blah, blah. Like go watch a Thrasher movie and then go smoke a joint by the railroad tracks and look at the stars.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
That's fun shit. That makes you feel stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not suffocating you. You know what I mean?
And I think the dinner trope is just that. Like it is it's a fallback position, right? Like, oh fuck, I screwed up. Let's go out for dinner.
Yeah. And like what kind of like
yeah.
You know? Like I fucked up. I'm gonna get her some flowers. It's like, hey, that's nice that you thought of me and whatever. I appreciate the sentiment, but I would be like so stoked if you brought some THC Pop Rocks and we watched an old black and white movie. You know what I mean? Like, because you thought, because that's the kind of stuff I like. You know?
Absolutely.
And like I work at 8 to 4 and Monday to Friday I drive a minivan, so we must do the dinner.
Yeah, and really, I mean, dinner is all great and all, but you can't do that all the time with kids, and it's expensive. So you're burning money, burning time, and not only that, you got to have somebody watching your kids, which means you have to pay for a babysitter, or hopefully you have a parent or somebody else that can watch them. But then you go and spend $100 some odd bucks for dinner, and like it's just.
If you think of the type of conversations you have in those different settings too, right? Like I put money on it that you're going to have more of an open, honest conversation while you're out having a picnic somewhere private, and like just chilling, rather than going to a fancy ass restaurant. You guys have stuff you need to talk about or want to talk about or share, but it's like not a private setting, so it's you're not being 100% honest in your communication in those types of settings either.
Absolutely. And there's something to be said about being able to laugh, and a lot of people are very self-conscious about their own laugh, and when you're out in public, people don't want, right? Like it's you will stifle that more than you will be free.
Yeah, and even just the way we talk to each other too, in like a fun, flirty, ridiculous way. Like I swear way too much, and it's something that I've been working on. But like if we were to go out for a fancy dinner or something, like I just wouldn't be myself. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I have a problem when I go to a restaurant. Is I used to work in a very high-end restaurant before I was in the Army, and I immediately start critiquing the restaurant. So I'm not engaging with my wife because I'm constantly critiquing the staff, and I'm critiquing the seats, and I'm critiquing this and that. And it's just, I'm so bad. So let's talk about kids, trauma and kids, because that is an extremely challenging thing for myself. I know, like I had my first son right after I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress was when we had our first son, like maybe 6 months after I got diagnosed. I got out of the Army. He was 5 months old, and I had to I had to learn how to be a dad. I had to learn how to be a partner and how to be a roommate. and it did not go well at first.
Plus, you're adding your own transition on top of all of
that.
Right?
Yeah, it was challenging. And I was of the same mind as we were saying earlier, I was like, okay, what's the next job? What do I have to do next? Where is the next step? Was blah, blah, blah. And I did rely, as you said earlier, Arthur, I relied on that system. I expected the VA to cover me, or expected the VA to call me when something needed to be done, or the psychology, the OSI clinic, when I first came here to Edmonton, I expected that to be the place to go because that's where I was told to go. And unfortunately, it didn't go well, but I learned something out of that as well. I had a buddy of mine tell me, he's like, you can go anywhere you want. And it had never even dawned on me that I could just go see a different psychologist.
You're hiring. You can hire and fire.
Yeah. And so again, it takes somebody to tell you that sometimes to do it. Now with my kids, one of my major difficulties is that I can't handle the high-pitched screaming. I have inner ear nerve damage. So when kids start screaming, it's like getting a friggin' screwdriver in the ear. Like it is straight pain right to the head. And you guys know as well as I do, when your pain spikes, your stress spikes. So that was always happening to me regularly. And they would scream, my pain would spike, my stress would then be spiked, and I'd be fucked up for the rest of the day. And then all the extra stuff would just fall onto my wife. Over time, I've come to, I got these noise canceling headphones, which help a lot whenever they're getting loud. And Also, we've taught my kids, I have my ears are broken. You can't scream at that kind of level to get my attention because you're not going to get the attention you want. But it took a while to teach them that. And it took a while for my own self to be able to recognize that it wasn't them. Like, they're not trying to hurt me. It's just a byproduct. How do you guys deal with your kids and trauma at the same time?
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What a great one.
Yeah, I know, right?
So, Ryder got Master Corporal Laramie. So Ryder got discipline from like 0.1. So
Yep.
Ryder got Mod 6, Ryder got post tour, Ryder got inspection ready, Ryder got expectations put up on him to even like sleep immediately without a night light for maximum sleep hygiene, because that's the right thing to do. So I had to deal with immense amount of stress and frustration because I would put my expectations upon this little human. And then we have our second child, Theodore, and now I'm hurt. So now I don't want to bring any of that. I don't even want to be aggressive. So Theodore gets to walk all over me. Theodore can do what he wants because I don't want to bring out my pain and my old ways upon him. So I have to deal with like finding the happy medium for discipline, finding compassion as well as discipline. And so that is still very much a struggle. When I'm out in public and like maybe like I'm like straight up flashback, or I'm hypervigilant, or aggressive, it's very hard for me then to hear the children scream at me, scream at the world, being children, and finding that compassion to then not like take it out on Brittany, because then Brittany and I are two different human beings and have two different ways of teaching children as well. So then I generally conflict with Brittany. So I argue with her. Sometimes we're not on the same page of like a situation, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But so I have to constantly like process what I'm feeling, process where the children are at, see that the children are me and I am them. So be compassionate. Think about like what I use too is like, would I want to be treated when I was young? What wasn't done for me that I can do for those children? So Edgewood taught me that as well. Children, and then like when I'm in pain, I have trauma, so like I am consumed by that sometimes. And so to be compassionate for another human being, even though they're my own child, is like sometimes super hard. I made a joke early in our relationship that if I was a bear, I would have eaten our children. Yeah. So it's tough. Children are
being a parent
is so tough.
hard.
I'm going to say this.
Anyway.
I'm not going to. But like children, it's like, and especially for like, man, my God.
It's especially
teachers
hard
failed
too.
us. They didn't prepare us for children. Are you kidding me? This little it already has its own personality. You cannot mold it. It is going to mold itself through the example of the world around. It's like it's so intense that I often will get depressed because of my children.
Yep.
I will get stressed because of my children. It is so daunting and so scary and so all-consuming to be a parent that it is so intense. I'm going to say it is so intense.
It is.
Every day I wake up, I'm like, okay, I got to do what I can. And I started telling the kids, when it's 9 o'clock and they're like, can we stay up? Like, it's like, hey, my beautiful children, loves of my life, I now need boundary space from you. 9 p.m. is now daddy and mommy time.
Yep.
Like, time, you're not staying up. I get 3 hours of me time, possibly 3 hours of Brittany and I time. So it's like, oh, go to bed.
Yep. Yep.
That's how I feel.
I'm the exact same way. When it's bedtime, I'm like, it's fucking bedtime. Time upstairs. Let's go. Pajamas, teeth, in bed. And my wife's a little bit more. Yeah. My wife's a little bit more, she gives them a little bit more leeway. And it's like, oh, they're being really good today. Let them watch another show. And I'm like, thinking to myself, I'm like, but that's half an hour that
30 minutes.
we don't get. Like, come on now.
It's hard too, right? Like, especially with the COVID stuff, you know, like if you're in isolation or you're in forced quarantine or whatever, they get just as sick of us as we get sick of them. You know what I mean? I think one of my biggest things that I've worked on lately is just really trying to dive into their perspective of how they would be perceiving what's going on, you know, not just in our household, but in the world, right? Like poor little Teddy, who's 4, you know, hasn't seen his daycare friends in 4 months. You know, he has had next to no interaction with children his age.
So he's becoming super attached to me. It's
yeah.
Like I am now his buddy.
Yeah.
I'm not his teacher. I'm not his father. I've turned into his buddy, and I see that I have to be his buddy right now. Like,
means that like emotional attachment is something, right? Because his entire world has changed. Those riders, like, you know, and like I'm wearing an N95 mask right now because I'm positive for COVID, and we've been in isolation for days now.
Yeah.
I'm not like we've had to isolate from each other even still. Like I've been living in a tent in my backyard, and like to the kids, they're like, what the heck is going on? Like, is mom like,
yeah.
Oh, and they see that I'm sick and they get worried, and like there's just so much stuff that we don't think twice about that they hold on to, and they're like, what's going on, because they don't understand.
It is such a difficult thing to let kids know about that stuff too, right? Like, how do you discuss a pandemic with a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old?
I think just like it's the same as being compassionate with ourselves or gracious with ourselves, is we really need to offer them graciousness and just be like, don't know, because you're just little, and that's okay, you know. So that means just having extra patience when it comes to things that, you know, in your normal routine you would be like, what the heck? Like, we have a schedule, we have structure, we have discipline for a reason. The world's just been turned upside down, so you don't even know what rules apply to you anymore. Yeah, and it's like starting from scratch.
Yeah, and it can really be like it's really anything, right? At any point in time, at any day, your kids are going to come up with something that you had never even thought of before in order to stress you out just because they're kids.
Too stressed out from this conversation.
Well, I don't mean to stress you out. It's one of those things. Like, kids are
like,
they're a blessing and a curse, because
so
you know
they're so
I had my uncle gave me this piece of advice very early on when my son was first born, and I have taken it with me ever since, and it is such a key thing that most people don't even understand, and it is this: fully expect that every time you teach your child to do something, you will instantly regret it.
That's really good.
And I was like, I the first time I heard it, I was like, really? Come on. Like, no way, not everything. And sure shit, taught him how to crawl, he would never stop. He taught him how to talk, he never shut up. He taught him how to run, and he will not freaking slow down. He taught him how to step out of diapers and into underwear, and now he's peeing all over the fucking place. It's just...
Or teach him how to use a knife and fork, and all of a sudden the knife wants to be cutting everywhere. Yep. So you have to watch for a little person that could at any time be like, I'm going to cut this.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it just adds that extra little bit of stress where you think, oh, okay, finally, he knows how to do this. I can not worry about it anymore. Wrong. Nope. You got to worry about it more.
You've just given them a skill, and now they're like, okay, how far can I push them?
Yeah, absolutely.
How far do I get to go until mom and dad say no?
Yeah. So I've come to the since I've, you know, after my second son, and I've really taken it to heart. So when I teach my kids something now, there's usually an addendum, right? Like, okay, we're going to teach you how to do this, but right now we're still going to do it the old way until you're a bit more proficient, and then we're going to carry it on.
There's your art within them.
Yeah. But at the same time, that's how you grow, right? That's how you develop your own kids, is to give them a skill set, give them a little bit of leeway, and watch them fail over and over and over again until they get it right. That's how we learn too, right? Is same thing as we were talking earlier. You have to give up the walls that you build to keep yourself safe. You have to give those up in order to be, in a partnership with somebody or in a relationship with somebody. You have to be able to give of yourself to move forward. And if you can't do that, then you're not really going anywhere. You're just sitting on a wall.
That's right.
Wow, we've been going for just about 2 hours here. This is fantastic. Again, thank you guys so much for being on here because this is awesome. Do you guys have any last minute points? Anything you wanted to let the world know?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, hit me.
You good with that? If I can go first?
Yes.
Okay. You only have so much time. Your life will end eventually. We are not invincible and we do not live forever. So for the love of all that is holy, find some happiness in your life, in whatever that looks like. And in a relationship, if you're going through hard times and you're confused or you don't know how to move forward, just ask somebody for help, because there are certain situations in relationships where it's just not healthy or compatible. And of course, I would never, ever, ever insist on anybody staying in a relationship that's being detrimental to their mental, physical, or emotional health. I feel, and this is just me saying for me, that some people give up too easy in a relationship. I think it's important that people remember that no matter what marriage you're like, who it is, whether it's two people who are artists or people who are infanteers or somebody like two totally different personalities that are in a marriage, marriages evolve and grow and people change no matter what happens. You're never ever going to be the same people from the day you got married to the day that you celebrate your 75th wedding anniversary. So in order for you to be successful in your relationship, you need to first understand that you are going to evolve and grow. It's about growing together and not apart. So if you want it to work, you have to work at keeping it together. It's not just going to happen.
That is so true and so accurate, and I couldn't agree with you more. It is a challenge, and it is something that you have to continually work at. I'm a big fan of a guy named Jocko Willink, a big proponent of his teachings, I guess you could say. And one of the things that he talks about is when you're a leader, when you're in a leadership role and you're teaching or you have employees or something like that, you need to mentor and teach and develop up until a point where you have done everything you could to bring this person up to speed. And if they're not up to speed, let them go. And I liken that to relationships as well, is that you have to develop that relationship. You have to continually work on it and continually, mentor each other on your wherever you are in your headspace in that day or that week or that year, and continue to work together. Because if you don't, then like we said earlier, you just get stagnant or you get bogged down or you just give up. Arthur, you got any points?
I guess would be for an I statement. I am grateful that I was able to face my true fears and sadnesses and get past the illusion of anger and projection, get past the illusion of perfectionism and what is all that is an infanteer applies to everything in a world. So to individuals, brothers and sisters that have our experiences and have been indoctrinated into our lifestyle, is when you're out, really look for that inner child, because when you find that inner child and you find that self that is scared and sad, or the self that is joyful, doesn't even have to be depressed, that self that is has passion and wants experiences. Once you find that, really nurture it, care for that. Don't be scared of feelings. I'm not saying be extreme in that sense, always have feelings and always cry. Just feel your feelings, sit with it, and let it pass. Let them pass. My thoughts are not me. So I'm in the now, I'm in the present. I'm feeling a carpet, I'm at a table, I'm safe in my home. I see orange paint, and I hear my son, and I smell my clean house. So I am here and present now. And those are really cool things to discover for myself. And I hope maybe that helps another warrior kind of leave our world of reactions and violence and fear and vigilance to something that they can enjoy. So hopefully that helps. Check me out on Iron King Live on Twitch.
Yep, absolutely. I was just going to get into that. So that's a fantastic statement of, being mindful in being present, right? What do you have right now? And my wife and I we had a bit of a conversation last night. She's not in the greatest mindset or the last couple of days, and I was like, what was one thing that went right today? Like, what was one good thing that you could pull out of today? And it was difficult for her to actually find that one thing, because the mindset she was in, everything sucked. Everything was dark. And I've told the story a few times, but I was in Wainwright years ago on my Mod 6, and we were sitting around waiting for orders. And it was one of those crummy Wainwright days, where it's warm, but it's not really warm enough to not wear a jacket. And the clouds were completely covering the sky, but it wasn't really raining. So it was just like a crummy, you can't decide kind of day. And while we were waiting, a sunbeam opened up and just hit both me and my fire team partner. We just sit there for a second and bathed in the sunlight and warmed up for a minute. And we looked at each other, and I was like, special moments from Wainwright, something like that. And it was just like a recognition of that was whatever just happened was awesome. And we just lived in that moment, right?
Yeah, that's wicked.
Yeah, I can't remember that. I had a whole name for it. We did it throughout the entire course, but I was talking to my wife last night, and I kind of did the same thing. I was like, you have to find, when you're in those dark moments, you got to find that one thing. And sometimes it is just as simple as, I had a chocolate bar today and it tasted good. That's it.
Do the things that make life worth living and make it so beautiful.
Yeah.
For birds. So birds invite me home.
Oh, that's a nice one.
When I birds, I bring myself to myself, and I acknowledge that now. And I thank the birds for allowing me to be present. So birds are definitely a huge part in that, exactly what you're saying. Like, I remember in Shiloh, sitting at the OP, it was raining, but the grass was like particularly green, and like the way it struck the leaves, and as I was just staring out, I was just like in it, and I didn't feel the rain. And I was like, yes, like I am nature.
Yeah, that's a great feeling, especially when you can find it and then sit in it for however long you need to, right? And I think that's what makes us so good when we're in the army, is when you're really in the suck, the good guys will just find something, and they'll be like, oh yeah, this ain't that bad.
Just become
it. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is. It changes, but you are it.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to follow you, know more about you, where would they find you?
I love the Twitch platform. On Instagram, Arthur's Experience, but more importantly, I'm on Twitch, and that's the Iron King Live. Pay homage to my concept of community and what I tried to build. And yeah, Twitch is really fun. I make it interactive. You train with me, or you watch me train, and it's just a really great community. They got DJs on there. I'm gonna plug this because a lot of us are recluses. They got DJs on there. They got games on there. Sports on there. They got Barstool Sports is on Twitch too. So it's YouTube, but a live forum at the same time, and it's really cool.
Awesome.
So definitely Twitch, Iron King Live. I stream twice a day. In the evening, it's my way too, because I don't like to go out. I like to go out to coffee shops, and I pretend I used to smoke. I quit smoking, so I pretend I have a cigarette in my mouth and a coffee with Brittany. I love that kind of like secluded events. I like lunches and baskets, but not going out. I don't really like parties because I get overwhelmed. So I play games on Twitch, and it's like, hey, play games with me. And it's a really cool platform. So for people that feel alone and isolated, I highly recommend Twitch is a good social platform to meet people, talk in the safety of your own home. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
not sponsored by them.
No.
A paid ad.
That's awesome, though. I'm glad that you were able to find a platform that works for you. That's fantastic. I mean, that's the greatest part about social media, right? Is if used correctly, it can be a big help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brittany, if anybody wants to learn more about you or follow you on stuff, do you have anything on social media?
I've actually kind of taken some time to a lot of things. So, I mean, like if somebody wanted to reach out and talk or whatever, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
My on Instagram. Yeah. And I've just kind of taken a step back from being so out there and involved. And I'm always open for people to like throw me a message or ask questions or whatever. Like I would never say that, but yeah, I'm just not a whole lot these days in that stuff.
Roger that. Okay. Again, thank you guys for coming on here. I think there's a lot of really great information that we discussed today. We went for just about 2 hours here, which is awesome. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that get a lot out of this. So thank you.
Thanks for having us, man.
That concludes this episode of The Toolbox. I want to thank you for listening. I hope you were able to use some of the information that was offered. I want to thank all those putting it on the line for us every day. Military, veterans, first responders, and public servants. Keep up the good work. I look forward to bringing you more tools for your toolbox. And until next time, stay open, stay humble, and stay focused. Chimo.